Welcome to the Contrarians and to another Dark Horse album episode. Tonight we are taking a look at AC/DC's 1976 album, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. We do want to hear from you in the chat. Let's do it. Holy crap, we made it. Jeez, I was worried. Well, anyway, we were waiting for the parish, and the parish is sick, so the parish won't be here. But we've got a panel anyway. We've got Gary, we've got Keith, we've got Reed here, and we're going to talk a little AC/DC. So this is kind of a test, because we don't you normally do the Dark Horse episodes like this. I might have did one like this before. But we're going to do it here because what we're going to do, we're going to get everybody's take on the panel, and then we'll reach out to everybody in the chat and get their take on it. And I'm going to want your rating out of 10. So anyway, so we're looking at Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. Now you're probably going, why is this a Dark Horse episode? Well, first of all, was there anybody that's on the panel that came up with this topic, or?
I threw it out there.
You threw it out there. Well, Keith, why do you think this is a Dark Horse album?
Well, in January, we did a top 5 AC/DC albums, and it hit me as we were wrapping it up that night that no one had picked this certainly as their number one, and I wanted to go back over the weekend, and I didn't get a chance to do it. I believe no one on the panel had this album in their top 5.
That's true.
So it got me thinking, and so I pulled it out and started jamming on it, and then I thought, well, I don't know, is it not that great of a record? Is it burned out? Is it just that there's too many better albums in the catalog? I don't know. So when this came up that Dark Horse was coming back, I thought, well, maybe that's a good one to start with. So.
I think that's a good one because no one picked it during the show at all. But, when this album came out in 1976, now tonight we're looking at the international release. We're not looking at the Australian album. So the Australian album came out in September of 76, and the international version came out in November. So this came out, Atlantic, when it came out in the States, really didn't push it at all.
Well, the thing of it is, it was not released here in the States until 1981. Right. It was only available as an...
in the States, but I mean, it came out in the UK on Atlantic in 76. Right. I don't know why it wasn't released here, but I'm just talking around the world. But it did come out, the international release, early, but they brought it out here because of the success of Back in Black. But that's when the album took off everywhere. Once Bon Scott died, then it started to get some notoriety. But anyway, it's a lot more of a raw record than what is going to come, than Highway to Hell or Back in Black or anything probably else after that. But anyway, we're going to take a look at it. And Keith, since you started this, why don't you start us off and tell us what you like, what you don't like about it, and your rating out of 10, and we'll just keep going around.
Okay. I like the album. It's not a favorite album, but I think there's plenty of good stuff on this record that kind of really gives gives you that full AC/DC experience. The album, can it start out any stronger? It opens with Dirty Deeds, which is one of their most anthemic of all anthemic AC/DC tunes. It's probably one of the biggest hard rock anthems of that late 70s period. It's huge, to the point where maybe a lot of fans now kind of put it off due to burnout, because that is a song that was just played to death. But if you can get beyond that, it's one of their finest. as Martin always says, Bon is that the street poet, and he is on fire with his lyrics on this record. So you get into that, then they hit us with "Love at First Feel," and that I just love a good power chord, and that song brings on, gives us a good strong punch there. Big Balls, another just an exercise in Bond's excellent skills of wordplay, and when we were all 12 and 13 years old, we just thought it was a riot. What's next? I believe Rocker is the next one in line, which I think they let us know that if it weren't for people like Chuck Berry, they wouldn't be here. I think that that song is, kind of their ode to their influences. That's all I'll say about that one. Problem Child. So many of these songs, Bon is speaking their autobiographical lyrics. He's not afraid to admit his faults and talk about his truths, and I think most of these songs here are Bond just really letting us know who he is, what he is. There's going to be some rocking at the show tonight. That one's kind of for me, a little bit of a sleeper, but that also has that old chug-a-lug kind of 60s sound. And I think it also shows them in that we didn't have it so much in the States, but there's always a lot of talk about both the UK and Down Under and the whole pub rock. And I think that's one of those songs that, really kind of is pub rock in all its glory. Ain't No Fun Waiting Around to Be a Millionaire. Again, another one of Bond's truths. And right into Ride On, all about life on the road. And he lets you know right out he's a bad boy. He goes from town to town. He drinks like a fish, and he's going to break another heart. And he lets you know he's honest. What's he going to do about it? Absolutely nothing. He's just going to move on to the next town and do it again. So it's really the album to me is just, Bond throwing it all out there.
Mm-hmm.
There are many records that I prefer over it, but I think it's a really good overall picture of the band, and I don't know if I'd rearrange my own ranking, but I think it's a good record, and if I'm going to rate it, I probably would give it a 7.
7 out of 10. All right. Well, 7 out of 10's not bad.
Not bad at all. No.
I can live with that. I don't know. We'll see once we go around. Now, everybody in the chat, just hold on because we will get to you. And then when I need your rating, it's like when we do the one and done. So, all right, let's throw it over to Gary. Gary, what's your thoughts here on the international release of Dirty Deeds?
To start, I would like to add, I wouldn't have this album in my top 5 AC/DC records either, but that's not to say that it's not a great album. Like Keith was saying, this album is home to a lot of Bond's best lyrics, and Bond is the MVP on this record. Just every song, he just conveys this character and a lot of great ad-libs that he does. I think the production is a little weak. I think Phil's drums in particular would sound a lot better on the later albums that they did, but he does good work on here. I always mix up Dave Evans on the bass. Mark Evans was the vocalist early. It was Dave Evans on bass, if I'm not wrong, on this one. I think a lot of the other 70s Bond albums are better, but let me look at my favorite songs here. Rocker is one of the greatest guitar tracks and just odes to rock and roll. That song is furious and amazing. Ride On is a glimpse at the other side. That song, it's beautiful, absolutely amazing. Ain't No Fun Waiting Around to Be a Millionaire is great. The longest AC/DC song, just under 7 minutes, they did that one, and it's amazing. I love the chorus at the end when they all get going. It's brilliant. And then my absolute favorite is Squealer. For my money, that's the best AC/DC closing track ever. It's just sensational. And no one could have sang that song but Malcolm and Bon. It's just amazing. I'd give this album an 8 out of 10 overall. I think it's excellent. Weird album cover too. Not a good t-shirt,
Hypnosis.
but it's cool. Yeah. They did what? Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin. It's got the weird logo on there, but I think it's a good album cover. It gets the wheels turning in your brain. Why do they have these things over their eyes? It's cool. Solid album.
That's right, young Logan. No relation to yeah. I don't think so. What? Like Bob Evans? No, not a relation to Bob Evans. Yeah, but I think the album cover's all right, but I don't. It's better than the Australian album. I'll give you that.
Oh yeah, that one's weird.
Light
With
years.
the Popeye arm. Yeah.
With the Popeye arm. I've got an original first pressing of that over there. I should have pulled it.
There's one over here somewhere.
Well,
I'm all discombobulated tonight because I'm not doing this phone thing, but I have one.
yeah, you're using the phone tonight. What's going on with you?
Because I'm all out of sorts because this whole StreamYard, and I'm trying to.
And you didn't have the link. That was
phone, and yeah, I'm not very well prepared. So
that's all right. You're good. All right, thanks, Gary. All right, let's throw it over to Reed and get his thoughts on the record and his rating out of 10.
Okay, well, I think it's safe to say our other esteemed panelists are much higher on this album than I am. I think it's a subpar AC/DC album. Even now, listening to it, I want to put it in historical context in America, because it's a vastly different experience listening to that album in the 21st century versus listening to it in 1981. So Back in Black was immediately huge. And then the record company rushed Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap into American shelves. People had no idea that it was a different singer. They didn't know that it was a different set. They weren't advertising that, oh, Bond's dead. You know what? A bunch of people had no idea who Bon Scott was. So for millions of people, Back in Black is the first AC/DC album. So then they stick Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap in the store, and you put it on, you're like, what the hell is this? It's got a completely different production style. It's got a completely different singer. It's a lot more Chuck Berry. It was a real slap in the face and the definition of a cash grab. Now, in 2025, you can forgive all of that and say, oh, okay, fine. You know, it's just an album. But at the time, it was really just underhanded and making it a very meta album, because the way they released this album was a dirty deed. It wasn't done dirt cheap, but it was a dirty deed. So I think listening to the album, it's much easier to comprehend it as their third album that came out in 1976 rather than their sixth album coming out in 1981, because this is not polished AC/DC at the height of their powers. This is AC/DC still learning their craft. So again, you're like, wait a minute, what's going on with this? Now, you can't say anything bad about the song Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. As my Australian friend Peter Kerr says, it's welded on, or rusted on, excuse me. You know, they're just going to be doing that song for the rest of eternity, and it's so tied into the identity of the band. Not a problem. Love at First Feel, it's one of those, it's a very stereotypical AC/DC song. But the lyrics could be sleazy, but Bon actually does some really interesting wordplay. My favorite line, I didn't know if you were legal tender, but I spent it all the same. I'm like, woo, that's flirting with disaster there. And then we get to Big Balls, and I'm going to take a different tack to it than Keith. I fucking hate it. I hated it in 1981. I hate it every time it comes on the radio. I think it's one of the most juvenile things I've ever heard. I'm like, yeah, when we were 13, you know, I hated it when I was 13, and I can't believe grown men did it. So I don't think it's clever. I don't think it's funny, and I skip it every single time. We go on to Rocker. Rocker is a straight-up Chuck Berry song at double speed. I think it would be better at normal speed, but so be it. It's over quickly. You move into Problem Child, another classic track. That's just straight-up classic Bon Scott era AC/DC. And the thing I will say, all of these songs, because I'm not going to say it on every song, Angus Young turns in some fantastic solos in every single song. He is just killing it. And I love his solos in Problem Child. There's going to be some rockin' is the Careful What You Ask For song, because it's basically Rocker at half speed. And I'm like, oh, well, this is the song that I wanted Rocker to be. And it's actually not very satisfying. Ain't No Fun Waiting Round to Be a Millionaire is a good 3-minute song that for some reason lasts 7 minutes. I feel there's a break in the middle of that song, and I feel like the album is skipping and going back to the beginning of the track and playing the song over again. I'm like, oh, that's weird. They should have edited that down to 3 minutes. Job done. Now, Ride On, one of my all-time favorite AC/DC tracks. It's like the mirror image of It's a Long Way to the Top If You Want to Rock and Roll, or Highway to Hell. Instead of talking about, you know, how he is a rocker, how he's a bad boy, it's about, you know, the toll that takes on his soul. And I love Bon Scott's delivery on this song. I'm going to change my evil ways one of these days. You know, he sells that because, you know, that's him. I love the arrangement on the album, how it builds up towards the chorus. It gets more intense and louder, and then they drop back down to where it's almost whispered. That is just a masterclass in expressing emotion with dynamics in music. I love it. And honestly, I wish it was the last track, because it's such a shift then to go on to Squealer. And Squealer's a good song, but I would have flipped those songs so that you had the more stereotypical AC/DC song, kind of the high energy momentum, and then ended with Ride On. I think that would have had a lot more impact. So I think it's a very mixed album. I think it's probably their second worst Bon Scott album. I like 4 tracks. I tolerate 4 tracks. I hate 1 track, and I love 1 track. So I'm going to give it 50%. 5 out of 10.
Okay. All right, cool. Thanks, Reed. 5 out of 10. All right. We can do it. We can deal with that. Okay, this is my take on this record. I do think that, yes, we all understood the U.S. 1981 U.S. repackage. It was Bond-led record, of course. It was clearly a cash grab effort of course. But I don't know why Atlantic passed on it when they put the international release out in 76. I don't know why they passed on it. Evidently, they didn't feel it was going to do anything here, but I don't know. Whatever. It's all good. But yeah, and it was a cash grab by the time Bond died. What's that?
That was not the sound of American rock radio in the late 70s.
Yeah, very much so.
Had Atlantic or whoever pushed them in the direction of Mutt Lange producing Highway to Hell, I think the overall AC/DC story would be a much different story. Radio did not want to touch that band until they got until they had a better overall sound, because that pub rock sound that they had, that underproduced, plug in and play in the corner of a bar sound, just wasn't gonna hit rock radio airwaves. They wouldn't.
Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Uh-oh.
They
Wait a minute.
They rejected Power Age too. They made them go back. That was a slightly different
Mix, wasn't it?
mix. Yeah. And there was they went back. Rock and Roll Damnation was not on the original album. There was another
Cold Hearted Man.
Cold Hearted Man was taken off. Rock and Roll Damnation was added. There was a big buzz about them to the concert going American public, but it wasn't. It was very similar to the early Kiss story, but they weren't getting the sales. The buzz was there. I was 12 years old, sitting at my friend's house. We're listening to Kiss records, and his older brother was cool about it. He wasn't slamming us for being into Kiss, but he was opening up our minds, and he was all abuzz about this band he had seen open. They had great opening slots, but they just couldn't get over that hump until they got that. Once they sounded a little more produced, that's when things took off.
Right. That time, the late 70s, Christopher Cross and the Eagles were the biggest thing on American radio. So you're just not going to get an AC/DC style band into the top 40 in that sort of environment.
Well, where I first heard them, the QFM 96 used to play AC/DC. My first album that I bought probably was in 78, and that was the international edition of High Voltage. And they played it, but it was like something that dropped from outer space. Because think about it, that was not a commercial. AC/DC in the 70s is not a commercial record at all. Now you listen to it and it sounds very tame, but back then it was like, something that you never really hear. But that's where I heard it. But this album, I didn't hear it till much later, but I don't think it's all that much different than High Voltage or any of the Vanda Young albums. They all have a similar tonality.
We would see it in the bins, in the import bin at the record stores. But, when you're a kid, scraping enough money together just to buy a domestic record was enough. You couldn't pay 2 and 3 times the amount, because for some reason, I want to say that import records back then were about $20 versus your $5.99 or $6.99 for your domestic, standard issue record. So they were bringing it in, but it just couldn't. They just wouldn't, pick it up and release it out.
Yeah, the days when you used to walk into a record store, tell them you want an import, they ask for money in advance, and 4 or 5 months later, you may or may not actually get your album.
Well, back in the days when there was Peaches on Morris Road in Columbus, they had the huge import section. You could go there and get whatever you wanted.
Yeah,
But
not in Montana.
Well, not in Montana. Anyway, when I look at this record, I'm going, all right, Dirty Deeds is great. Love at First Feel is great. Big Balls, whether you like it or not, they still play it today. So I think that's great. Yeah, it's funny. Well, maybe not for Reed, but that's okay.
It's a cool
Rocker
riff.
is great. Problem Child is great. Now there's going to be some rocking. It's okay. Ain't No Fun. It's all right. Ride On. Squealer, those good. So I think for the most part, I think it's a good record. Is it any better than High Voltage that's got TNT and all that? I think they're all about the same, I would probably give this a 7 out of 10 if I'm going to rank it, because I like most of it except for 3. Well, even the 3 tracks that I'm pointing out that aren't all that the end all be all. They aren't bad though. But most of this record I think is great. Problem Child is absolutely, dang, it's worth the price of admission. So, yeah, you're right, Brian. I think it's equivalent to High Voltage, though High Voltage has a special place in my heart because that was when I was a kid and we used to play that all the time.
That was my first, so that's same.
So yeah, that's my favorite. Well, we ranked those, and I think that was my favorite because that's where I came into it. All right, everybody. So I've given it a 7. I want to hear everybody else. Now, Brian already got yours. I think Gary just gave it an 8.5.
I'd
All
give
right.
High Voltage the nudge over this album too, just barely though, just for like rock and roll singer and
Well,
live
rock and
wire.
roll singer's great. All right, Webb at 8.5. All right, classic rock junkie 8. See, man, people like this record.
I like
10. Of course, Sydney, you're going to go with the 10. Joe 7.77. Isn't that the same? Isn't that the day that a 7.77? All right. Jesus. All right. Hold on. Okay, we got a B plus. Jay, what's a B plus? I need a number. You guys are coming in too fast. I got a 7. I got 11. Logan goes 11. Okay, 11 and a half. An 8. All right. 7.5. Yeah, Gary, I had got yours. Kevin, 4 out of 10. Ooh. You and Reed are like a tag team almost. Solid 8. Got a solid 8. Ken's going 7.5. Did I get yours, Ken? I don't think so. Sydney keeps repeating himself. Hollow Moon, a 9. Man, you guys are all over tonight. Jay's a 7. Scott's a 10. Logan, what are you? It's 4 out of 10, or is it 11 and a half? What are you doing? I gotta, we're trying to have actual numbers. All right, if you blend the release, okay, wait a minute. Peter Jones says if you blend the release, it's a 6.5. Otherwise, the US version is a 6. All right, it's a 6.
What other songs are on the international that aren't, or on the Australian release that aren't on the international? I've looked at it on Wikipedia so many times I can never keep it straight in my head.
Jailbreak is one of them.
Oh yeah.
Well, Jailbreak should have been on here.
R.I.P. Rock in Peace is the other one.
Yeah, I could take or leave that one, but Jailbreak is sensational. Yeah.
Yeah, Jailbreak's a good one.
And
That's
different mixes of some of the songs too.
Yeah, Jailbreak is great. I went and bought that EP just to get that.
It's one of
and
my
that came out much later. Like, what year did they put out that Jailbreak EP?
84.
84. Man, I'm surprised. Yeah, it should have been on here. All right, I'm ready to tally, ladies and gentlemen. So let's hope I got my wow. How can that be? Something's off. Oh, I see what's off. Hold on. I forgot a comma. Okay. It came out to forget it. Wait a minute. East Bay, 5 or 6 out of 10. Well, I'll go with the 6. Hold on. It's not probably going to make much difference in our score. Is that everybody? Do I have everybody? All right. Let's calculate it. Yes, Webb, carry the 1. I've ranked everybody's together. I got a 7.3.
That's fair.
I think that's fair because I went with 7. So with everybody's, I think I would say this really isn't a dark horse album because it would do well. I don't think it's really a dark horse. Maybe when it came out, yeah. The original release in 76. Not bad. I say I could recommend this album to somebody. So,
It's a good time. Well, it's a good record.
Good record. All right. Well, God, we have 74 watching. Hey, I do want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I very much appreciate it.
I think the songs that are good are great. I mean,
Right.
Oh yeah.
Dirty Deeds, Problem Child, Squealer, they're bangers. So I think it kind of, I don't know, for me it works.
Yeah. Does anybody have anything to add before we wrap this dog up?
A couple things I didn't mention. I think one of the reasons Ride On stands out so much as this exceptional song is because that's the only soft song AC/DC did. And they did it perfectly. It was something they never could even attempt to do again. And I'm glad they didn't, because it just makes Ride On all the better.
So you
Also,
like Right On?
I
Yeah,
love it.
fine.
I think it's
Well, there is-
brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Blows me away every time I hear it. And then Angus's scream at the end of Dirty Deeds is just so good. That's awesome.
You know, when I listen, I'm just going to say Central Ohio area on classic rock. I would say out of that whole Bon Scott era, Dirty Deeds is the one they seem to, back in the old days, they used to play a lot. There was a lot more variety. But now in the Clear Channel era, well, this station's not Clear Channel, but everything's so homogenized. But out of all the Bon Scott stuff, they pretty much play Dirty Deeds. And you might hear, God, what else?
Highway. Oh,
Well, you hear Highway to Hell. Yeah. But pretty much those two Bond era tracks. Isn't that weird? They used to play a
Radio.
lot more.
I hear Highway to Hell and It's a Long Way to the Top as far as Bond songs the most.
They play
but
that too. But here we play Dirty Deeds a lot.
In Oklahoma City, they used to play Big Balls all the time. I hated those DJs.
They play Big Balls here every now and then. Steve says Squealer's worth of the price of admission, the baseline. Well,
Oh yeah. Amazing.
the rest of this album to the greater public has disappeared. Yep. Well, yeah, it's kind of a dark horse now. It is the 3 well-known tracks and nothing else. Good point, Peter Jones. All right, kids. Well, you have anything else to add? We can wrap this dog up. You good?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, everybody. Hey, we appreciate everybody here. If you'd like to be on these panels, we would love to have you. We would love to have you on a live panel. I'm going to start doing more live panels on this channel. And if you'd like to support us via Patreon, please do. We throw the shows up there early. There's interaction up there. So we're going to start doing more Dark Horse albums live, just like this. So the next one, what is the next one? Judas
Priest.
Judas Priest is the next one.
Yeah.
Point of entry, I think.
Yep.
Is that right?
yes.
All right. So probably in a couple weeks, I'm going to look at the calendar. We'll do another Dark Horse when we're doing Point of Entry at Judas Priest. So you want to tune in for that. Other than that, we also have a Ko-fi, buy us a pint or a cup of coffee. You'd like to have that. Take donations. No donos tonight. We haven't got donos for a while. But anyway, we do appreciate everybody here. So please like, subscribe if you haven't. We will see you in a couple weeks on the next Dark Horse episode, which will be Judas Priest. So, gentlemen, thanks for doing it. Appreciate everybody here. And yeah, exactly. And we will see you on the next one, everybody. Good night.
Go do some Dirty Deeds.
We should play Dirty Deeds.
Trying to make $1 million.
Exactly. We'll see you.